Hey everyone, so today I'm gonna give a bit of a technical review or overview of the K1200s R and GT, and also the K1300s GT, seeing that both models are pretty much the same. I mean, the bikes are the 1300 series is a bit more developed than the 1300 series, but the basic components are all the same. So I'll give you, I personally have, as you can see in the background, I've got a 2004. It's built in 2004, but it's 2000, according to the sales, it's a 2005. I'll be using my bike as the reference, but like I said, most things that I'm going to be talking about will also apply to the 1300. We'll come to that later then. All right, well, let's get started. I'll show you around what I've prepared. So 2005 1200s K1200s, the Bumblebee, what they call it. I actually went for the color when I bought it. Really love the paint job. It really sticks out. So I'll give a bit of an overview, just for people to see what this bike looks like. And I guess we'll start with the technical stuff. Now I've prepared my table here. As you can see, there's a few bits and pieces that I've collected over the 3 years that I've had it, including the spare engine. This is a 2008 motor, came out of a 1200s, which crashed. Had 25,000 kilometers on it. So some of the parts are out of here that are on this table, so let's get to it. Now, a lot of people, when they buy a 1200, especially the 2005, 2006 model, they have the clutch rattle. The clutch rattle it just doesn't sound right, obviously, and it is caused by a couple of factors. One factor is the biggest factor out of all of it is the clutch basket itself. When you look at the clutch basket, this is an aluminium cast basket. Now when you look at the back, and this is where the rattle comes from. Now in the back of this basket there's springs, dampening springs. Now these springs over time will shorten, and the shorter they get, the more it will come. All the springs in the back, even if this was a new one, the springs are going to be loose, but with the constant rattle, the springs get shorter and not shorter, but they get compressed more and more and more, to the point where they're pretty much just dead weight in here, and the elasticity is just gone. And that's the rattle that you're getting, is these springs not doing their job anymore, and then because the basket to the gear can actually twist. That's what the springs are doing. Now, if these springs are fucked, the basket to the gear can actually rotate even further. So this constant back and forth causes the rattle noise. Now, the clutch itself, it still functions. I mean, the plates are still doing their job, but it just doesn't sound right. So
You know, you pull up at a red light and the guy next to you has his window down and it sounds like as if you're riding a Ducati with a dry clutch, then yeah, that it's just not BMW. If you want a Ducati, you just buy a Ducati. So that's one of the things. The springs getting fucked. They are getting fucked in two ways. Aggressive riding, which is going to wear out every spring, obviously. And the other problem that the 1200 has, which was improved on the 1300, the 1200 has different camshafts. Now these camshafts cause the bike, plus the fuel injection as well, but the camshafts and the fuel injection are making this run rough at idle. So because of the Euro emissions norm that you have, they're pretty strict on how much fuel you can inject into an engine before you go over the emission standard. So the engine itself is pretty much running lean all the time. Now, if you run this engine lean, it's a 4-cylinder and you're leaning it out, it's gonna be running rough. You can do that with any car or any engine. You know, take your car and you put your hand over the if you have a carburetor car, it's probably easier. Put your hand over the carby, and you're a 4-cylinder or a 6 or V8, whatever. It's gonna be running rough because it's just not getting enough fuel to make it run properly. So camshafts that are not properly, that are not the proper camshaft with the cam low, but it's too difficult, too technical. So the camshafts being different to a 1300, and the fuel injection also being different to a 1300 makes the bike run rough, wearing out these springs. Now when the bike runs rough, I mean, this weighs about, probably including the clutch packet, you're looking at about 6 kilos. Now, when these 6 kilos are constantly shaking, front, forward, backward, you will wear out these springs. It has to. Another problem with the clutch is the inner hub. So you have your lamellar clutch packet, what they call it. I'll just call it the clutch packet, with all the stator plates and all the rotor plates. Now this inner hub, when it sits in here, and this just becomes the one packet, the 05, 06, probably up to the 07 at some stage, the inner hub has got holes, and it has a hole. I hope you can see that. That's where my thumb is. It has a hole for each plate. Now, all of these holes should line up with its corresponding plate. And I'll show you. This is from an 05, so this definitely has the problem, which was mine, so I had the problem. And I'll show you what they did at the factory. It's actually not BMW's fault, because these packets are made by the company called Herbiger, which you can see on the plates themselves. So the supplier actually fucked this up. The basket itself is also made by Herbiger. So maybe it's a BMW design, but the supplier is the one that is fucking it up. So when you look at this plate, and it sits here on the aluminium face, the oil feeding hole that is supposed to feed the oil to this first plate is drilled. It's drilled too high. It should be actually drilled, I'd say about 2 millimeters further down, 3 millimeters further down. So the plate that is facing the first plate that is facing the aluminium face here on the hub is not getting enough oil. Now, if you let this clutch with this hole being drilled in the wrong place, if you run this clutch for a while and the plate doesn't get enough oil, it will start actually wearing a groove in here. Now this packet, I don't know how old it was. Obviously, I didn't. I bought it used. It already has a slight lip. I mean, I'm talking about maybe half a mil. I've seen photos of them actually pretty badly ground, and that means that it's just fucked. The deeper this groove would go, the more eventually it comes to the point where the spring is just not going to have enough tension on it, and it will cause the clutch to slip. But having not enough oil going to your first plate, because it's not fed enough oil, and this thing rubbing against it will look like this. So when I turn it around again, you can see the difference. Now, each individual piece here, its sacrificial part, once the oil, if there's not enough oil getting to this, it will start pasting up the inner bit, and that's why everything here is black. So your clutch rattle is your springs wearing out in the back, but also the plate not getting enough oil. The next plate sitting on top is going to be this plate, which is a steel plate. Now this steel plate, can't even get it on there. There you go. Now when the oil is being transferred to through these little holes, and because these are flush, the steel plate and the clutch plate has a tendency to stick to each other. So when you hit it into, when you go from neutral, you start the bike, and then you go from neutral into first gear, and you hear that clunk. The clunk is actually caused because the clutch plates are not disengaging. The plates, because of the oil film, will stick together. Now I'll show you. See how when I lift only the steel plate, how it wants to lift the other plate. Now this is not my thumb doing it, this is just the oil sticking to it. Now when you have all these plates sticking together, and they're not disengaging because they're stuck together, the clunk comes from that. Now this clunk is obviously the gearbox is still then being driven. So when the clutch plates stick together, and you pull the clutch, the lever, and you disengage the clutch, and the plates are sticking, it's still spinning the gearbox. So when you hit it into first, the gearbox comes to a complete stop, and that's the clunk. Now this clunk goes back into the rear of the basket. So every time it clunks, these springs have to compress. If there were no springs in here and you clunk it, your teeth eventually would probably break. So the clunk is actually also wearing out these. Now the clunk has been gotten better. In the 1300 series, it also includes having a different drive shaft, which is a bit more flexible, but we'll come to that later. So for the clutch plates to disengage properly, BMW came up with this. So this is from a 1300. They put in a spring. So this spring, let me do the right. Let me get the right packets. So I'll show it to you properly. comparison. So this is the 05. I'll show you the hole again. Now you see this hole right here. That's the one that's misread. Now on a 1300, which is a newer lamellar package including the inner hub, now you see the hole in here. It's drilled a lot deeper. It's probably not enough light in here for you to see it if I hold it right next to each other. But we'll give it a try. There it is. Now, at the top, that's the way it's supposed to be. And that's where they got it wrong. Now, the 1300 lamellar package, they put this in, which is an extra spring, which separates. It's supposed to separate the individual plates. So it sits like this. Now it may not look like much, but it's actually there. I can't say that this works or it doesn't work because I'm using a 2008 clutch lamellar package, which does not have this spring. My clutch seems to be better. It's definitely better than it was before, that's for sure. With these pieces here and the hole being misdrilled. Now if you have one of these, you can drill yourself an extra hole to make it right. Now obviously don't just go and drill it next to this hole. I would turn it around 180 degrees and drill it on the opposite side. Just make sure when you drill that you don't scratch up the surface, because if you do make a mark in here, it's gonna ruin your clutch plate really quickly. It's just gonna wear it out. So now I'll show you the difference in a 1300 and a 1200 basket. Now besides the springs, obviously, they look the same diameter, same everything. Probably the weight is also the same, but there's a difference in the drive sprocket. So a 1200 basket, any 1200 basket, will have these 6 dowels in it. They go in here, and that's what drives your oil pump. On a 1300 basket, it's different. You've got the 2 big dowels, and they just sit in like this. The number of teeth on the sprocket, they're the same. There's no difference. So if you go to BMW and you complain, yep, I have a clutch rattle and it's annoying and I want the clutch rattle to be gone, they're gonna sell you a new basket, which at the moment costs about 1,700 Australian dollars. So you're looking at about what, 1,200 US to get a new basket. The lamellar package, clutch packet assembly, with the new version, with that spring washer and the spring and the washer, that would probably cost you another 600-700 Australian, 450, 500 US dollars. If you're gonna spend $2,000, if you have that kind of money, that's good. I didn't, so I ended up buying the whole motor from a 2008 model, because I knew that the 2008 model, although it has this kind of sprocket in the back, in 2008, I know in 2008, but it's possible that in a 2007 model as well, you already have the darker colored basket. So if you see the darker colored basket on eBay, that's the one that you want to go for if you want to buy a used one. It doesn't really matter, as long, put it this way, as long as the basket is darker in color, it's the better one. Obviously with mileage is also a factor, but if you can get a low mileage 2008 basket, or a low mileage K1300 basket, you're pretty good, you know, just to put it in, and you would expect there was not going to be any rattle. Now, there is people on the forum, including myself, that, now I did this before I actually bought the motor, the spare engine, because I wanted to, you know, save some money. But there's people on the forum that tell you that you can rebuild these baskets yourself. That is theoretically possible, but it's not going to work unless you really know what you're doing. I mean, I'm an aircraft mechanic, and it's fairly challenging. The three rivets that hold the basket together, there's only 3 of them. Go on the forum and you read, there's always people saying that, yep, we drilled them out, we put new springs in, and then we hammered the rivets back in. Well, let me tell you, now, these people, they say, yep, it's, you know, straight, easy, forward job. No, it's not, because they didn't do their measurements right. These are not straight rivets. Now, let me draw you what a straight rivet looks like, okay? So, this is a straight rivet, okay? The shaft is, the shank is straight. Now, when you hammer it, you're going to create a head that's going to look something like this. Alright? These rivets in here, they are not straight shank rivets. They actually look like this. They are tapered. That means this and this, there's an angle. You know, if you continue on, there's an angle. So if you were to take a rivet with a straight shank, okay, and this is the, I'm going to draw the clutch basket for you so you understand what I'm talking about. If you take a straight rivet and hammer it into a taper hole, it will eventually fail. Yeah, this part here is not going to expand to fill up the gap. It's not going to happen. So when you read in the forums, yeah, just buy 3 rivets and hammer it back together, not going to happen. I mean, it will happen, but I would never put it back into the motorbike, because, you know, the crankshaft, you're doing what, let's say 8,000 RPM. You know, the reduction here is maybe you get down to 6.5, 7,000. If you have 7,500 RPM on your clutch basket, including the packet and everything, that's like 6 kilos. And one of these rivets comes off, you might even end up having the clutch, you know, somewhere in your leg. So this is just ludicrous. Don't try fixing this yourself unless you really know what you're doing. The 3 rivets here in the back, they are not straight rivets. They are shank. Sorry. They're not a straight shank rivet. They're tapered. They're a tapered rivet. Now, the clutch itself, let me just put everything back together. The clutch packet in a 2005 model gets the oil, and this is also for the 1300, so it doesn't really matter. It's the same principle. The oil is being pumped through the whole engine and eventually comes out the transmission shaft. Now in the 05 and 06 models, the oil coming out of the transmission shaft, I'm going to show you this. The oil coming out of the transmission shaft is blocked off by this, what BMW calls it a oil jet nozzle. So this applies for the 05 and 06 models. In the 05 and 06 models, this piece of aluminium, they hammered this into the shaft, and it has a flat spot at the top, and that's where the oil comes out and then goes into your clutch basket and you pack it. This is not enough oil coming out. They had a service bulletin to remove this and put a different aluminium plug in here, where they filed the top part even bigger to let the oil flow increase. That still is not enough. So what BMW then said, fuck this off completely and we'll give you a completely new pin. Now I'll show you the pin. So when you open your clutch cover and you see this, including this piece, then you know that you're not getting enough oil. You got to remove this, take this out. Well, this is just just pulling out of the bearing. The newer style is this. So they, from the 1300, well actually from the 2007 onwards, they came out with this pin. So the pin has a channel grooved in here, and that's where the oil comes out. Now obviously it got better, but people were still complaining, you know, clutch dry, whatever, burnt clutches, not enough oil. They took this pin out and reworked it, and they ground a second slot into it. So this setup right here, first generation, and then they modified it again, that little flat spot, so you can say that's second generation with the flat spot here. Then the third generation pin had one channel, and the fourth generation has two channels. So this is the current model. It has two channels, and this is also in the 1300. Now that sits in here and lets the oil, so when you pull the clutch and the slave cylinder pushes here, this can go in and out freely. Now just be careful, the 05 and 06 models, for that little aluminium plug, so that nobody can hammer it in too deep into the shaft, there's a tiny little lip in the transmission shaft. So if you get this because you want to replace it with that aluminium piece, and you get the new pin and you're going to push it in, it's going to get stuck pretty much this far in. You got to take a little bit off from this, a tiny bit, not too much, just a tiny bit, and then just make sure that this slides in freely. Okay. So that's the clutch, and pretty much everything that's to it. It is unfortunate that it took BMW so long with this. I mean, they should have just gotten themselves a GSX-R or any other Jap bike and just copy what the Japanese do, because they really, you know, you don't get any clunk in their transmissions. But it's BMW. It's their first time that they used a wet clutch assembly, and although they did a piss poor job at the beginning, eventually they did sort it out. It's only unfortunate for the people that, you know, have a 1200. They then have to spend even more money if they're already out of warranty to get this done properly. Now, a few people are probably going to say, well, oh, okay, well, we've got this pin here, and you know, the two channels, and you know, increase the oil flow. Why don't we just take out this aluminium piece completely, or even cut the whole tail off? If you cut the tail off, or you remove this plug completely and you let the oil flow freely, you're gonna fuck the engine up, because the oil pump only delivers a certain amount of oil at a certain pressure. Now, it's like if you rupture a hose in a hydraulic system, the pressure will drop. So the pressure that feeds the oil into the camshaft bearings, your crankshaft bearings, into the transmission and everything, all of that oil is now not getting properly into these bearings anymore, because you've just removed the plug. So whatever you do, don't remove this plug and just say, well, let the oil run free and, you know, happy days. It's not going to work. It's actually, you're going to make it worse. If you want to do it properly, get this piece. Every BMW dealer has it. You can get it online, buy it used. Sometimes it even comes with, like this piece came with the whole clutch that I bought, so not a problem there.